triangular engine block. Some engines only need to be heard once to haunt you. Not because they're smooth, but because they're weird. It screams and shrieks, gulps air, then slams it back out as a harsh metallic howl. The weirdest part is the shape. A triangle. 3 crankshafts, 36 pistons, no cylinder head. It sounds like a mad engineer's rough sketch. But it ran for real. It once hauled express trains, tearing across Britain. It once sat deep in the engine rooms of Royal Navy warships. Then it slowly vanished. Not because it was bad, but because it was vicious, high maintenance, and insanely picky about who touched it. Welcome to the engine history. Today we're tearing into the Napier Deltic. After 1945, the war ended and military orders evaporated. Napier got cornered. Before that, they ruled piston aircraft engines with monsters like the Lion and the Sabre, powerful but mechanically terrifying. Then the jet age arrived, pushing piston engines aside. Backed into a wall, Napier had exactly one asset left: absolute high-precision machining skill. They took that weapon to sea, aiming at places starving for power, needing lightweight but still demanding long, brutal duty cycles. Their choice was bold: build a 2-stroke diesel, cram violent power into a triangular block. That block was called Deltic. The Royal Navy needed engines for patrol craft and torpedo boats. Narrow hulls, cramped engine rooms, but they still demanded high speed. A nasty equation. To go fast, you need a lot of power. But if the engine is too heavy, the boat sinks into its own limits. Trying to solve it by dropping aircraft engines into boats was a desperate patch. Ship engine rooms are salty, wet, and loaded constantly. And aircraft engines gulp aviation fuel like water, turning logistics into a nightmare. The Navy needed a practical block of iron, light, violent, tough, and able to run on regular diesel. Napier brought Deltic to fill that exact gap. On paper, it looked unbeatable. But the prettier something looks on paper, the more blood it can draw on the shop floor. In 1950, the prototype E107 hit the test stand. A bizarre configuration, 18 cylinders in 3 banks. Each cylinder is stuffed with 2 pistons driving toward each other, 36 pistons total. At the 3 corners of the triangle sit 3 crankshafts, locked together by a massive phasing gear train at the end of the engine. The biggest flex is that it completely deletes the cylinder head. 2 pistons moving in opposite directions compress air in the middle. When it's hot enough, the injector spits fuel and it self-ignites. No cylinder head means you remove the classic failure point on high-output engines. It also cuts heat loss. The measured result: 1,650 horsepower packed into a 2,500-pound body. The Deltic's problem wasn't making power. It was keeping that power firing in a clean, stable rhythm. Deltic is violent, sure, and light, sure. Its power-to-weight ratio back then crushed almost everything else. But this is not an engine for amateurs with a wrench. Those 3 crankshafts must hold phase with brutal precision. Off by a hair, and compression timing goes wrong. The engine shakes itself to pieces, pressure drops, and worst case, pistons meet where they are never allowed to meet. Oil passages, gears, scavenging everything, force the mechanic to know every bolt by heart. This wasn't for dockside diesel guys swinging hammers. Napier had to run its own specialist training. Do it wrong, and you pay with a pile of scrap metal. This block isn't weak, it just demands perfection. The Royal Navy didn't hesitate. They stuffed Deltics into 42-ton class minesweepers. Those ships used wooden hulls to reduce magnetic mine risk, so engine room weight was measured down to the last ounce. Deltic fits perfectly. Cramped spaces. Saltus is eating metal, vibration tearing at everything. Maintenance schedules are slipping. Nothing about it was gentle. Yet Deltic stayed alive at sea all the way into the 1980s. It proved it wasn't fragile at all. As long as the mechanic was solid, the oil was right, and the timing was phased correctly, it would grind to the end. Success at sea cleared the path for a bigger gamble. Put it on rails. In 1955, English Electric funded its own demo locomotive, painted it a loud blue, and shoved 2 Deltics into its belly. British Rail took it and ran it on the London to Edinburgh route. Real-world performance smashed doubts. It pulled like a beast, held speed hard, lost time, and still clawed it back with throttle. After more than 400,000 miles of real service, the engine forced people to pay attention. 22 Class 55 locomotives entered production, each swallowing 3,300 horsepower. People called them screamers for the ear-splitting shriek and the way they tore through the schedule. London to Edinburgh in under 6 hours was a statement. Passengers didn't need to know what 36 pistons were doing inside. They just knew the train hit the platform earlier than expected. The Deltic's biggest advantage became its death sentence. It demanded elite mechanics, specialist tools, and high-level workshops. By the late 1960s, when rail budgets tightened, the question wasn't, is it fast? It was, can we afford to keep feeding it? Class 55 wasn't killed because it was bad. It died because the maintenance costs were burning money alive. Railways pivoted toward slower, cheaper 4-strokes that any depot mechanic could service. In early 1982, Class 55 ran its last service. This triangular engine didn't lose its value. Its era, an era willing to spend money and patience to keep it alive, was gone. You can archive paperwork and specs. You can't archive skill. The feel of a phasing gear train ticking right, catching an injector spraying wrong by ear, seeing a heat mark on a piston crown before any gauge reacts. That knowledge lives in a mechanic's blood, not in a manual. Luckily, a few people still kept the craft. A few Class 55s still exist. A few Deltic blocks can still roar. Hear it cold start wild and uneven at first, then slowly locking its RPM into place, and you'll understand why mechanics still respect it. Not because it's easy, because when it's cared for correctly, it's a once-in-a-lifetime mechanical masterpiece. So what do you think about this violent triangle? Peak creativity or an expensive flex? Drop a comment for the engine history. Tell us what block you want torn down next, and the team will go all the way.